Hey kids, remember this one? The Ghoulies. They'll get you in the end. Ooh. The Ghoulies is a really dumb PG-rated horror movie from 1985. Curiously came out same year as The Goonies. And this is not The Goonies. No, this is The Ghoulies. Make sure you get it right. So, yeah, I'd never seen this, but I do remember always, the guy in the toilet and the little green puppet, and for some reason they put a shirt and suspenders on him here, and I don't think it appears that way in the movie. Yeah, it's a horror movie, but it's also PG. Now, with a name like The Ghoulies and with a little critter on the front there, you would think it would fall along the same lines as a movie like Critters or Gremlins, which is what started this whole little puppet monster craze. But yeah, it starts with this demonic cult meeting, I suppose, where a baby is born, or baby is presented to this wizard or whatever, or a high sorcerer, who this is his child, and the intention is this child is going to be sacrificed to the demons. But his wife, or at least the mother of the child, protests, and the child is saved from sacrifice. However, she's killed, and there, for some whatever reason, there happen to be these little puppet critters hanging around, and these are your ghoulies. So we get to see them in the very first scene, just briefly, and they don't do anything. They just kind of sit there and go rah, 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 and they don't talk. They don't really, actually, throughout the whole movie, they pretty much don't do anything. They're just there, and they just flop around a little bit and move their mouths a little bit. Within the first 5 minutes of this movie, you can tell that it's going to be weird, and it's going to be cheesy, and that the special effects are terrible in this movie. Now, knowing me, all that would probably add up to a pretty overall positive viewing experience for me. Somebody who likes really dumb, really bad, cheesy movies that just make me laugh. And this one had me in the first couple of minutes, but then it got so boring. It just became basically the story about this guy, the baby from the beginning, grows up and he inherits this big mansion where all these demonic rituals and stuff were going on. He never knew his parents, but he knew the one guy that saved him from sacrifice, Wolfgang, played by Jack Nance. Actually, Jack Nance was Eraserhead. He's in a bunch of David Lynch movies, including the Dune movie, the original. The guy that was the baby in the very beginning turns out to be the chosen one or something in this cult. Or basically, so he moves back into this mansion formerly owned by his demon-worshipping father, who used to hold rituals and stuff in the basement. He moves in with his girlfriend, and they have a party. We get to meet some of the other characters in the movie who are really stupid. There's a couple of stoner guys that are just so ridiculously no amount of drugs is going to make you act that stupid. Well, maybe. I don't know. There's some powerful drugs out there. And then you get your womanizing guy, and then you get a bunch of basically they introduce this cast who you would think, this being a horror movie, that they're just setting them up so that they can kill him off in cool ways in all these scenes later in the movie. It doesn't really work out like that, because basically, as this guy, he has this party, and during the party he invites all of his friends downstairs into where they used to have these rituals, these demonic rituals, and he picks up a book and he starts reading a spell out of it, and nothing really happens. Or at least they think nothing happens. All the friends are like, oh, this is stupid, whatever, I can't believe you're making us do this, and they just all kind of go away. But as they all retreat upstairs, then we see some ghoulies appear. And that gives me hope. However, the next couple minutes of the movie, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes, are this big, I don't want to say a montage, because it's actual scenes, and there's a lot of lines in there. where this guy just keeps going back to this book, and he keeps reading about demons and stuff, but he doesn't tell his girlfriend about it, and he doesn't tell her, what's going on or any of that stuff. He just tells her, I've been spending all this time, fixing up the house, which he actually does. But, in his downtime, he's summoning demons, and he's gaining power, and all this stuff, and he's becoming this sorcerer, and it's like, the drama between him and his girlfriend, I don't want to say it's badly acted, and I don't want to say it's badly scripted, but it's just bizarre. For example, she comes home one day, and she can't find him anywhere. Meanwhile, he's in the basement with the book open, this satanic book, and he's got like these crazy robes on, and his eyes are glowing green, and he's summoning demons. His girlfriend comes downstairs and sees this, and then she retreats upstairs. It's like, oh, so this is what you've been doing this whole time, like acting as if like he's been like cheating on her or something, or just wasting time or something like that. Meanwhile, he was summoning demons, lady. You should run, get out of there. But anyway, she goes back upstairs, and he goes after her, and he talks her down and says, I promise, honey, I promise I'm all done with this, and it doesn't mean anything, and I love you, and blah blah blah. And he convinces her to stay and everything. And really? But that's a good chunk of the movie too. And then they eventually have another party, and while the party's going on, he's downstairs in the basement summoning more demons and stuff, or enacting some new ritual, and more ghoulies get summoned. And unfortunately, also, this ritual resurrects his dead father, who's buried in the front yard or in the adjacent cemetery, because mansions always have cemeteries adjacent to them, right? Anyway, so that guy comes back to life, and then he starts causing trouble and uses the ghoulies on his team to his advantage. I think. I don't know. It got really confusing and weird, and I wasn't even really sure what was going on. When it comes to the ghoulies themselves, like I said, they barely do anything at all in this movie. They're just like hand puppets that just kind of like flop around. And if a ghoulie attacks somebody or bites somebody, it's so obvious that like the actor just has like a doll on his neck, and he's like, and he's like shaking the thing around to make it look like it's biting him and stuff. And it's like, in comedy movies where they, like Something About Mary, where the little dog attacks somebody, and they have like a stuffed dog, and they throw it around, flop it around, and that's your ghoulies for you. That's all they do. And they don't even have like an integral part of the plot. It's not like he released this swarm of ghoulies anywhere. No, it has more to do with this guy and his crazy demonic rituals, his father coming back to life and challenging him for the power of the sorcery and blah, blah, blah. And the ghoulies attack people, like I said, but you don't see any like there's like barely any gore in this movie because it was PG. I mean, were they really shooting for an audience like the Gremlins audience? Even Critters? Like, Critters had a little bit of gore, but not much. But this, there's no gore. I mean, the puppets are stupid and kind of gross looking, but there's nothing, you don't really see very much blood or anything. There's not a lot of excessive violence. And by the end of it, most of it turns out to not even been real. So let me explain that. During this, like, party that they're having, it appears that the ghoulies kill a bunch of people. And also, like I said, the sorcerer comes back to life and challenges his son. Then suddenly Jack Nance, who was like the caretaker or whatever, the guy that saved the baby from the sacrifice at the beginning, comes back. And he's suddenly, this is the first time you've seen him since the very beginning of the movie. And he comes back and suddenly he's like this powerful sorcerer. So he fights the resurrected evil dad sorcerer and saves the life of the chosen one, baby, intended sacrifice, the main character. And then at the end of it, we see even the stoner guys that we thought were dead, even those guys are alive at the very end, and they all drive away and take off. And they're like, oh my God, thank God none of that was real. That's some crazy shit. Let's get out of here. And they're like, it's all over now. It's all over. I'm never going to read that book again. I'm never going to summon Ghoulies ever again. And then as they're driving away, you know, then they show suddenly in the back seat of their vehicle, then a couple of Ghoulies pop up and they're hee 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 hee. And that's the end of the movie. And I'm like, well, that was fucking stupid. But I guess I was kind of entertained. Obviously, this had a very low budget. Probably kind of a rushed production. I mean, I'm guessing because it looks kind of crappy. Just even the storyline of it is really stupid. And, you know, it's just mostly disappointing because I wanted to see, you know, the floppy evil puppet monsters. And yeah, I got to see some of them, but they didn't do anything. It was silly. It was like they could have just taken them right out of the entire movie and had this, like, well, mind you, it would have been shittier, but then they would have just had this story about a guy that wants to, you know, rule the world through demonic powers or whatever, and like a wizard battle sort of thing. Because that's what it all boils down to. And the almost called them Goonies there. But the Ghoulies don't really do anything. But yeah, so that was frustrating. Yeah, what would I give Ghoulies on this scale? I don't know, C-. Oh, I would have given it a solid C. Solid C meaning like, well, it's not a good movie, but it had potential. It's not that good. Like if this is like, if you're like me and you've seen this movie around for decades, but never watched it, you're not really missing anything. It's exactly what you'd expect, but maybe even a little disappointing compared to that. So maybe C- is a little harsh, but I guess I got to stay with that because I don't want to record this video again, and I sure as shit am not watching the Ghoulies again. Apparently there's like 3 or 4 sequels to this, and the Ghoulies apparently do get more screen time and do more stuff in those movies. But you know, my odds of finding those are pretty slim, and I'm not going to actively search for the Ghoulies 2 and Ghoulies 3, and I'm pretty sure there's a Ghoulies 4, like very recently too. Yeah, Ghoulies are done, man. I mean, there's just no Goonies.